the Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Hello and welcome to the Best in the World with Richard Parr. I've got another fantastic world champion on the show today. Before we get to her, I want to tell you about this week's sponsor, and it's Audible, one of the leading providers of audiobooks in the world. That's what we love to do on this show. We like to learn from the best, and you can do that on your iPhone, Kindle, Android or MP3 player. All you've got to do is get Audible and you can listen to audiobooks wherever you go. Do you know where I do it? In the gym. I listen to an audiobook. On the train, on the bus, walking down the high street. All over the place I am listening to audiobooks and learning from the very best, like we do here on the Best in the World with Richard Parr. And because you're a smart person and you've decided to listen to this week's episode, the kind people at Audible are giving you the chance to download an audiobook for free, for nothing. The chance to learn from the very best for nothing. A bit like what we do on the Best in the World with Richard Parr. You get to learn for nothing. It's downloaded every week on a Wednesday. You learn for free. And with Audible, you can learn whenever you like. But with them, they are offering a 30-day free trial to check out their service. Trust me, it's very good. I use it myself. I wouldn't be mentioning it if I wasn't using it myself. It's a product I use every single day. So you should too. You can download a free audiobook and try their service for 30 days. All you've got to do, it's very easy. All you've got to do is go to audibletrial.com/best. I'll say that one more time. audibletrial.com/best for your free audiobook download. You'd be silly if you didn't do it. Now, sticking with serious business, I can tell you about this week's guest. It is the former 10,000 meters world champion, Liz McColgan. She also went on to win the New York City Marathon, the Tokyo Marathon, and hold on, we're not done there yet, the London Marathon as well. That was back in 1996, you may remember that. She also won an Olympic silver medal. And one of the things she tells me on the show is how at the time she was so disappointed, but now that she's had the chance to look back on her career, she appreciates what she achieved there so much more. And of course, we're heading into the Olympic Games this week. So it's really interesting to hear about how everything's going, what went through her mind when she went to her first Olympics. And of course, her daughter Eilish is competing in the Summer Games. So we'll get to hear how she continues to train her daughter, even though she's living very far away from her in Doha, Qatar, a place I know very well. I lived there for 6 years, and Liz tells me about how she's been finding living there for the last 3 years and how you train in the extreme heat and some of the other pros and cons of living in the Middle East. So it's really interesting to hear from Liz McColgan on that. And then she gives other interesting bits of information, from diet to nutrition to pre-race rituals to post-race recovery techniques. Again, like many of our great guests on this show, you hear some really fascinating information which you can use if you're an athlete, a sports star, or an aspiring sports star, or just to help you in your everyday life. There are things you can learn from Liz McColgan, just like you can from some of the other sports stars we've had on the show. We've had some fantastic Olympians on the show before. Etienne Stott, Ellen Hoog. These are people you can really learn from. All you've got to do is go back on iTunes, subscribe, download, listen. Please rate and review. I've got the begging bowl out right now. Please rate and review if you like any of the podcasts, any of the show, because by rating and reviewing, you help boost us up in iTunes, and the higher we are in iTunes, the more people that listen. The more people that listen, the more great guests we can get on the show. It's simple maths. You don't need a degree in maths with finance like me. It's simple maths. So if you could do me that favour, I'd really appreciate it. Please rate and review on iTunes. And there's many other ways you can get in contact with me. If there's anything you want to tell me that you like or you don't like about the show, contact me on Twitter at Richard_Parr, or go to the website richardparr.net. There's a contact page. Get in touch. Let's have a little bit of communication. Well, rather than me talking to you, let's hear from Liz McColgan. She is the best in the world.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Liz McColgan, welcome to the Best in the World with Richard Parr. You're in a part of the world I know very well, Qatar. How long have you been there and how are you finding it?
We've been here for just coming over 3 years, so we're into our 4th year now. And it's challenging. It's a different part of the world with different ways of living, different laws for living, and it's just challenging to be trying to do the work that I do here. But in saying that, it's very rewarding. I've set up my own athletics clubs here, and it's amazing, to even find the gems that I have here. Kids that are more than capable of running, but never given the opportunity to run. So, so although it's a challenging place to living, the rewards just make it worthwhile and very, very enjoyable to be here and working.
How prepared were you when you went there of what to expect? I remember when I first went there in 2008, I had no idea. I didn't know if they had running water, shops or anything. And they've obviously got those things. But what did you know about the country before you went, and what surprised you since you've been there?
I didn't really research an awful lot about the country, to be honest. Obviously, it's a Muslim country, so I kind of knew the laws on alcohol and dress and things like that, so that didn't really bother me. But I think I wasn't prepared for the intense heat. It is really, really hot. It's like going into an oven whenever you open your door, and there's no let up of it, so everything's very high air conditioned, so no matter where you go, you're either roasting hot or chilled to the bone. So got used to that really quickly. I think for me the shock was not being quite so prepared for the lack of support for girls in sport. It's still, Qatar, Doha is really only developed over the last 25 years, and even just up to 10 years ago, it wasn't nearly as developed as what it is now. So it's probably one of the fastest growing cities in the world. It's obviously one of the richest. And I think that imbalance of just how quick it's grown has had quite a negative effect on things like what we have back home in the UK, like grassroots level sports. They just don't have that here. So when you come over, there's absolutely no structure or in place to support development of sport, and I think that's what I find really challenging and what I wasn't prepared for. I mean, when you come over, they have the best facilities available. A lot of them are empty, and you have very, very overqualified physiologists, physiotherapists, all dealing with children who have never had the proper input to actually develop into a sport. So they tend to go into a school, try to talent ID, but only look for the ilk of a child that looks like a sports person, and not necessarily look at the other elements that might, or different traits that might make a child good at sport.
Are there any chance it could get any better? Are there any developments going on now at all, or is it going to stay like it is?
No, I think that, again, it's such a fastly developing country that I think, everything's been put into the infrastructure of the country. And I think that once all the infrastructure's up in place, hopefully the next step is to actually go and look at the grassroots level of the sport and how to develop their own sporting heroes. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of talent within Doha. But it's just not nurtured in the right way just yet. But I think that, once all the roads are, they're still building roads, they're still building, the infrastructure of the city as such. So, hopefully at one stage, that will sort of be fulfilled, and then they can concentrate on, how to develop the youth and to have a healthier, happier nation, really.
And you mentioned the heats, but also you have the month of Ramadan. How can you continue to train while that's going on? What kind of things do you do?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult during Ramadan month, but we're here in a Muslim country and we respect all the traditions that go with that. So during Ramadan, we're not allowed to drink in public. You've got to cover, your shoulders, your knees, and we just respect that. And if we want to continue keeping fit and healthy, then we find the best solution for that. So what we tended to do is during Ramadan, we changed all our training times to the evening, so that the people that were exercising could drink whilst while the fast was broken, really. So you just respect the laws and rules of the country that you live in, and you adapt. So that's just what we do. So it's a bit difficult because during Ramadan months it does get extremely hot. It's really, really humid as well, and so it's difficult to train. But you adapt your training to allow the body systems to cool, and you just don't overheat. So we just are very careful in the way that we plan our programs.
And while you're in Doha, your daughter Eilish has been back in the UK and training for the Olympics. I believe you continue to coach her and train her, but from afar. Are there any apps you use, and how hard or difficult is that for you?
No, it's really good for me because obviously I'm Eilish's mother, and I've coached Eilish since she was 12 years of age, so I kind of know her completely inside and out. But the good thing about Eilish, and because of I've been away for the last sort of 4 years, and because of Eilish, she's really, really good at giving feedback. Probably to the point of too much feedback. I know everything about Eilish's day. How she feels, what her heart rates are. When we work to programs, we do everything to specific heart rate zones, so that I know that she's not overdoing it. And as I say, her feedback is amazing. She tells me exactly, how the legs are feeling, how her breathing was, how she felt the session. And, we're really on a really good wavelength as to how to, deliver the program and how she reacts to that program. So, when you're working with distance between you, you do need to have a lot of trust in what the coach has given you. And obviously I need to have a lot of trust in the athlete, knowing that they will do exactly what we've told, what I've written down. And if they're honest with the feedback and you're able to adjust the program as to what that athlete needs. So it works really, really well. We've not had a problem with that. She's had 2 years of really, really bad injury. Didn't run for 18 months, and even during that time, even the cross training program, which was quite a difficult one to work out because of the injuries that Eilish sustained, it was very difficult. I would say that's the only downside to it, is when things aren't going particularly well and the athlete's a bit down and a bit depressed, it's really, really hard to keep reinforcing and to keep them on the right path because of the distance between you. But as I say, I think I know her so well now that I can read her well and try to support her as best as I can. And she's also has training camps here now, so she comes out sort of and trains in the heat. And I honestly believe that if she hadn't come out in January, there's no way she would be in the position that she is now and being able to run and being on the team in Rio. So, although the weather's really hot and humid here, it does have a part to play in fitness, and the stresses and strains that the body goes through in this extreme heat, I think, is equivalent to being at altitude. So there's a lot of benefits. So she's been here on 3 camps now already, and it just works. We make it work.
You mentioned there about when athletes are down and depressed and feeling low. What would you do to get out of that slump when you were competing, when you were feeling down and depressed? How would you turn that upside down?
it's very, very difficult when you're injured and you feel, you actually feel the world's against you and that you're never going to get back running. I mean, I've had various times in my career where I was told, "Oh, you'll never run again." But I think that an athlete, if they're honest, they have that drive within them that you know deep down whether you can do it or not. For me personally, my last operation, I knew that my foot would never allow me to do the training that I needed to do. So you kind of know the balance yourself as to what your body is capable of doing and what it's not. And I think that as an athlete, you do have that inner drive to succeed. You have a bit of a stubbornness about you. If you're an endurance runner, I don't think I've met any endurance runner that doesn't have a bit of a stubborn streak in them. That sort of I'm not going to give up kind of attitude. And for me personally, I just wasn't ready to give it in, and I struggled back probably twice in my career where I don't think a lot of other people would have made it back with the injuries that I had and the time out that I had. But there was just something within myself that I knew I wasn't ready to hang my spikes up, and I was just determined to find a way to get back. And I kind of clawed my way back twice, especially the year that I won London. The injury that I had, I went to 4 different people and they said, 4 different surgeons, and they said, "No, you'll never make it back. Your knee's gone." And it was up to me to try and find that one person that said, no, we can help you and get you back, which I did, luckily for me. I found a guy called Richard Parr, and I went over to America and based myself there, and I was getting treatment on my knee really about 6 hours a day, sitting on a table, getting specific works done. And after 8 months, it eventually came back and I was able to get into marathon training and came out and won London Marathon. So, it's all about the drive within the person, what the injury is, getting the right team around you to, to build you up again. And the hardest part is just believing that, you can get back and do it, and that you want to get back and do it.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
We've got more coming up with Liz in just a moment. I just want to tell you again about Audible. That is this week's sponsor. For you, the listener of The Best in the World with Richard Parr, you can get a free 30-day trial of their product and a free audiobook download. All you got to do is go to www.audibletrial.com/best. I said that a little bit fast, didn't I? Sorry, people. Sorry, peeps. But it's audibletrial.com/best. I've just listened to another audio book. I've just finished it. It's So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson, talking about how the culture of shaming has increased through social media, through Twitter, and how it's become part of our society and the negative aspects that it's having on our society. It's a very good book. It's a very interesting listen or read if you want to actually buy the book. I recommend the book as well, but I like to listen on audiobooks, and so I think this is a very good one from Jon Ronson, So You've Been Publicly Shamed. Perhaps that could be your free audiobook download on Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/best. All right, let's get back to the best in the world with Liz McColgan.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
You gave birth to Eilish. Well, you didn't have the end of the 1990 season because you were pregnant, and then you came back in 1991 and you had a storming year that year when you became world champion. I believe you won your first marathon. What were you doing? Were you doing any fitness at all while you were pregnant? And what made you so good after that break? Because some people would think that when you're being pregnant, that when you return, you might not be back to form, but you came back even better. What were you doing?
Yeah, after the reason I got pregnant was because I wasn't enjoying my running. I wasn't enjoying the coaching that I was getting. I felt that I just lost the drive to win. I really wasn't happy doing what I was doing, and so I decided it was time to have a child. And when I made that decision, I had made that decision on the fact that I was retiring from athletics. I wasn't going to make the comeback that, at the time, there was no other woman who had had a child, say, and come back and been, better than what they were before they had the child. So, there was nothing in the decision to get pregnant, to have Eilish, that made me want to be the better runner. It wasn't about my running; it was about me personally just not being happy and wanting to have a family and things like that. So, and what happened was, I've ran, every day since I was like 11 years of age, and so all during the pregnancy, I continued to run. I didn't train. I didn't put a pair of spikes on. I didn't go down to the track. But I think what happened with me was, when I did when I did get pregnant, I didn't know I was pregnant. So I was preparing for a marathon. So I was running like 110 miles a week, 4 months pregnant. And the reason that, I went to the doctors was I didn't have any morning sickness. I didn't have any signs that I was pregnant. But I started to get like a breathing problem. It was like I was getting out of breath. And when I went to the doctors, they said, "Oh, could you be pregnant?" I was like, "No, I'm not pregnant." And when they did the test, I was over 4 months pregnant. So I was well on into the pregnancy before I even knew it. And then because I just felt so good, I just ran every day. I ran anything up sort of like an hour a day. I just went out and ran, even right up until I think it was the day before I had Eilish, I was out running. And I think for me personally, the break that I had in that sort of 6 month period away from the pressure of training, the pressure of racing, it just rekindled my passion for run again. And I'd had Eilish, and then I just, I think I'd just given birth, and then I think it was like 2 days later I went for my first run, which wasn't the nicest thing to do, but I just felt the love for my running come back really, really quickly. And I think because I was happy, because I had a baby as well, the sort of like the longing for a family was gone. I'd got my little girl, and I just was in a better place mentally again. And I just felt, I want to get back running. But I didn't want to get back running to do anything spectacular. But I think just the mental break away from the pressures that I had from, all the managers and, you need to get out there and race and win. It just gave me like a renewed passion for what I was doing again. And I just went out running, and every day I just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I mean, I ran my first race in the States 6.5 weeks after I had Eilish, and I won sort of an international 5K. And, things just went from there. I just really was in a better place, was happy, got on with my training, and then within 12 weeks, I won a bronze medal at the World Cross Country, and then 9 months later, I was world champion. But I think that it's really important that your body's so used to exercise that me even going for a sort of 45 an hour run is like a normal person going for like a 3 or 4 mile walk. So I didn't train excessively hard through the pregnancy. Once I knew I was pregnant. But when I had Eilish, I really, really pushed the boundaries. And as I say, I was just energised to go on and do better and bigger things, really.
And can you describe that day of when you became world champion, of what you did coming up to the race? Did you change your pre-race ritual at all, or was it what you've always done? And maybe just tell our listeners what normally involved it in your pre-race routine. I didn't really change an awful lot. I will say that I was very consistent in my training. I knew my event, so I did specifics for 10K. I did some pretty amazing sessions, I think, but they were just consistent. I had a good spell of sort of 8 months where I just trained really, really hard.
with one race specifically in mind. I went into a lot of other races knowing that I had 100 miles in my legs and trying to run a 1,500 meters and running 1,500 meters in like 4:7, 4:5. I just dreamed about that one race. And to be honest, when I went into the World Championships, I was confident that no one else in the world had trained as hard as me or prepared meticulously for it than what I did. And obviously it paid off. I knew it was going to be in hot, humid conditions, so we took Eilish with us, and we went to Gainesville, Florida, based ourselves where everyone else was going to altitude. We based ourselves in hot, humid climates. I was doing really, really brutal sessions at like 95% humidity, 86 degrees heat. I was running at the hottest, most humid times, and losing sort of 3 kgs in sweat just in one session. But it prepared me. And if you look at the World Championships, I was probably the only European that probably finished that race. And when I finished, I wasn't as distressed as a lot of other people because I'd went and did the homework and prepared well for it.
Working very smart there. And then later in 91, you won your first marathon in New York. Did you realise you could do it? Were you really confident from the World Championships?
No, there's a bit of a story about that one. When I'd won the World Championships, I got about sort of a week later, there was a press conference in New York for the New York Marathon, and Fred Lebeau had actually called me. And he said, Liz, we've just had, like, I had no intentions of doing a marathon. It wasn't even in my radar to do one. And Fred called me and he said, Liz, we've just had a media, and we had Rosa Mota and Lisa Ondeniki, the 2 challengers for the ladies' race. And they were asked the question, there's a young Scottish girl who's just won the 10,000 metres in Tokyo. Do you ever think she would be a good marathon runner? And both of them turned around and said no, that they didn't think I could be a good marathon runner because I waste too much energy on the road because I'm a track runner. So he actually said to me, do you want to come and race the girls and prove them wrong? And it was like only 5.5 weeks. And I just said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So I didn't really go into the marathon with the proper training, but obviously, I was a high miles 10K girl. I was running 110, 150 miles a week. So I knew that I could do the distance. But so within that sort of 5-week period, I just took my training. I slowed the reps down, did a lot more of them, did a couple of long runs, not massively because I knew that, it was too near the race to go in and, do lots of 20-mile runs and whatever. But, I just prepared for the race as a 10K runner. And just bulked it up a bit on the reps, and I went in and beat both of them. So that was the story behind New York. I didn't really have much of a planning for it. I didn't overthink it. I just went and did it. And luckily for me, for the type of runner that I am, I'm an endurance athlete anyway. It went really well for me.
That'll teach them for doubting you. And what would normally be your recovery routine after a marathon?
Back in the day when I ran, there wasn't an awful lot of science, behind the sport really, and I didn't have, I didn't have the lottery funding that the kids have got today, and I didn't have the best physios, I didn't have the psychologists and the nutritionists and all this sort of thing. We just went out and ran, and for me, I had met a guy called Ger Hartman, and Ger actually lived with me for 4 years in my house, and he was my therapist, and he did a lot of really deep tissue work and stretching, and so my routine was pretty much sort of 4 or 5 times a week. I would be on the therapy bed getting treatment, so I was really into recovery in a big way. We did the ice baths, not every day, but I was very up on my nutrition as to what I ate after Iran. So, we kind of did probably the things that the kids are getting told right, but without really, the qualified people behind saying what to do. We kind of, had a routine that we stuck to and worked to. And I really do believe in really deep tissue work. And I think that was, the success behind me. Not only that, obviously, that's what I did in my career, but Ger went on to work the exact same way with Sonia Sullivan. He's worked with Kelly Holmes. So that routine that we had was quite a successful recovery routine.
You mentioned food there. What type of foods were you eating?
I was a stickler for really, really good diet. I didn't have any rubbish in my diet. I didn't eat chocolate, I didn't eat cakes, didn't eat, I was very, very, as I went on in my sport, I got very, very, I would say over the top of good nutrition. I eat a lot of porridge, a lot of baked potatoes, lots of fruit, vegetables. I wasn't a big, I didn't eat meat. My diet was very much aimed at, for me, for running. So everything was about nutrition, getting the right nutrition in so that I could perform, and then having the right nutrition after, so the recovery, so that I recovered quickly. So I was very, very strong on my nutrition. I had a very, very, very good diet, but as I say, I didn't eat meat, so that wasn't I would tell my athletes, to eat meat. That was probably my one thing that I didn't do. But when I got diagnosed with asthma in 87, I think it was, I changed my diet slightly, and I was eating an awful lot of oily fish and things like that to help the oxygenation of the blood and things like that. So, but yeah, I had a really, really, really good diet, very high in fish and porridge. Porridge was my saving grace. I had a tin of porridge that was written in 5 languages on how to cook it, and it travelled the world with me, because I knew if I went to a country where they had like sauces or anything on the food, and I would be very reluctant to eat it in case it gave me an upset tummy or whatever, so I would eat porridge 2, 3 times a day. So that was a good energy food that I used to carry around with me.
That's interesting. I've actually just started having porridge every morning. In fact, gluten-free porridge. I've been on a gluten and dairy-free diet just to get a little bit fitter. You mentioned there are a lot of developments over the years. What do you know now that you wish you'd known when you were competing?
I wish I had known more about altitude training, because I think that when I went to altitude, it didn't particularly work well with me, and it wasn't until after I retired that I found out that my blood composition was slower than most for changing. So whenever I went to altitude, I kind of always hit it wrong. I didn't feel good on the days that I was supposed to feel good. So I think that for me personally, as an endurance runner, there's so much information out there now, and there's so much more tools to the trade, that even me as an athlete, I think I would have benefited from the knowledge that I've got now. But at the end of the day, that knowledge makes me a better coach. So, I'm in a better position to pass that information on to the athletes that I work with. And I think for me personally, as an athlete, I was very, very hard on myself. I never gave myself the opportunity to enjoy my wins, because I was always on to the next race and to the next race to get better, get faster. And I never actually took my foot off the pedal to actually embrace the major wins that I had. And I think that now I always enforce that with the athletes that I coach now, that you train so hard. So when you do get the success, just take the time to breathe it in and enjoy it, because tomorrow it could be gone, and that's the sort of downside to our sport. So I would say that that's one thing, one trait as a person, as an athlete, I would have changed. I trained really, really hard. Maybe I didn't need to push the boundaries as far as what I did, but I think at the end of the day, if you went and changed everything that I'd done, would I have won the medals that I had won? I probably don't think so. So, that's probably, if anything, the only things that I would look back and say, maybe a little bit of regret.
What I found on this show with a lot of the athletes I've spoken to is they've all become very good at time management, because they're always thinking about training, or when they were younger, studying as well. Are you good at time management?
Yeah, I'm a stickler for anybody that's late. I'm a very much a watch girl. Even when I was running, I was always timing things. And I'm a stickler for discipline, because I think that in athletics you've got to be disciplined, and that means you've got to be organised. You've got to get your race kit ready for your race, so that you're not running about trying to find things the next day. When you go in training, you've got to make sure you've got your recovery drinks with you, you've got your spikes with you, you've got your dry top to put on. So I was a big stickler for discipline, and I've always been a disciplined person. So I think you need to be organised and disciplined to be successful in this business, definitely.
We're nearly at the Rio Olympics, and why don't you just tell our listeners what your first experience of the Olympics was like? Were you able to kind of take in the atmosphere and everything going on, or were you just solely focused on your work and your running?
Yeah, I think that obviously my first Olympics was 88 in Seoul, and I was a medal contender. So when you're in it and you've got a potential of being a medalist, your whole persona is not about going and being part of the team. You don't really get the opportunity to enjoy the Olympic experience. Like for instance, I didn't go to the opening ceremony because my race was on in a couple of days' time, and I didn't want to be tired, and I went into the village a bit later, so that what you find is, because you're at the Olympics, there's all sports, and athletics is usually the last sport to start. And so you get, the swimmers that have all been successful or unsuccessful, whatever, but, they're finished, so they're partying and enjoying the Olympic experience. And the village can be quite noisy. So, because you're a medal contender, I would stay out of the village as long as possible to make sure that I got my sleep properly and nothing was interrupting my focus on what I had to do. And what you find too is, when you're a medal contender, the media want a bit of you. So you would always be called to do press conferences and things. And, that's the last thing that you want to do when you're really focused on your race. So my first experience probably wasn't what most would experience. Because the village was really, really noisy, I moved out. I went in about a week before, and it was too noisy, I couldn't sleep, so I had to try and find a hotel, and all the hotels were booked. So I ended up going into a Japanese hotel, which was like it was a Japanese bed, so it was like a mattress on the floor, and it was just like a little box room. So I actually slept on my own for the 2 days prior to it, just so that I could get the proper rest that I needed during the day and whatever. So, a lot of athletes, they tend to need to do what's best for them. And so I think in 88, I missed the whole Olympic experience because I was so focused on trying to get the medal. I thought I was good enough and trained hard enough to get the gold medal, but unfortunately, I led pretty much the whole way and got out-sprinted over the last 200 from Olga Bondarenko, and I ended up getting a silver in my first Olympics. So it was when I got that, I was very, very disappointed. I thought I'd let everybody down. It was not my happiest medal to get. And I think because I felt I'd let everybody down, I kind of blanked that I even got a medal. I didn't really, share the win with anybody or with the family. When I went home, I just put the medal away in a drawer, and I never put it beside all my other medals. And it wasn't until Paula Radcliffe in Atlanta when Paula was running the marathon, and she was obviously favoured to win, and she had a really, really bad race, and she went from in the lead to second to third, and then she dropped out, and you've seen a picture of her crying on the side of the road. And it wasn't until that moment in Atlanta that I turned around and I thought, you know what, her dreams were shattered, and she's so upset. She's not even got a medal, and there's me, got a silver medal, and I felt like I let the nation down. And I actually went and got my medal out and put it back in the medal cabinet with all the other medals. And then I thought, I should be proud of it rather than being disappointed with it. And that was the first. It wasn't until later that I actually appreciated the fact that my first Olympics I got a silver medal. But yeah, that's what my first experience was.
That's an amazing story. It sounds like the village is a bit like university halls when everyone's doing their exams, and those that have finished, and then you've got the ones who have still got to do it, and they're all partying. Yeah, it sounds like quite the co-ed experience.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult to balance it because you've got to think too, all the other sports, although they're on earlier, they've put in a lot of hard work to get there as well. So they're enjoying the experience. Their hard work's over. They can relax, have a little bit of a break, but they're not worried about the other sports that haven't even started. So it's a hard balance to keep, that whole village in a equilibrium that's really good for competition, especially when some sports start finishing. It's fine at the start because everyone's getting ready for the competition, but it's different sports doing finishing a week before the athletics even start, and it's like, oh. But anyway, I think everybody has to deal with it, and hopefully respect. People are happy and other ones are still nervous.
Will Eilish be in the village in Rio, or will she be in a separate hotel? Have you made any recommendations for her?
No, Eilish will be going into the village. I think Eilish is 5 days before a race. She's leaving Fontenoy. There's a UK-based camp in Fontenoy altitude. We use altitude with Eilish. She responds really, really well to it. So her program's all been designed around being kept at altitude for as long as possible. So she will fly in. I think Eilish will probably be one of the last of the team members to go into the village.
Well, I wish her all the best at the Olympics. Liz, thank you so much for this interview. Just before we go, could you maybe tell our listeners how they can continue to follow what you're up to, perhaps with a Twitter address or any other forms of social media, or anything else you'd like to promote on the show? That would be wonderful. Yeah,
well, we have a website. We've got dohaathleticlub.com, which is our athletics clubs. And then I'm on Twitter as just Liz McColgan. Just sign up and follow what we do.
Wonderful. I follow it already, and I look forward to seeing what you're up to, and I hope Eilish does really well at the Olympics. And Liz McColgan, thank you for being the best in the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.
Thanks so much to Liz for being on this week's Best in the World with Richard Parr, episode 24. We had a fantastic month in July. Record download figures for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for subscribing, for downloading, and telling your friends about it, because it really, really helps. So thank you so much. And there are still other great episodes which you may not have heard. Perhaps you want to hear from our first ever guest, Chester Williams. Of course, we've got the Paralympics coming up soon. Perhaps you want to hear from Alfonso Cunningham, a former Paralympics champion. He's got a fascinating story there from Jamaica. Perhaps you want to hear about the cliff diving superstar Gary Hunt. They're all on iTunes. You can download. They're all on richardparr.net. Please have a listen. Tell your friends. Let me know what you think on Twitter at Richard_Parr or on the website richardparr.net. It's going to be a very exciting Olympic Games coming up. Stay tuned to everything that's going on the TV. This is what so many people work their whole lives towards to be the very best. And I wish everyone at the Olympic Games the best of luck. Some of them don't need it because they have worked their, I don't know if I can say butts, I'm going to say butts off to get there. So good luck to everyone going. For those of you who are there enjoying it, enjoy it. For those of you I know who are working there, work hard, but appreciate also just how lucky you are to be there. I covered the 2012 games and it was a phenomenal spectacle, as I'm sure these games will be. So good luck to everyone there. Enjoy the games, everybody. Enjoy the summer for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. It's going to be a nice one in August. I'll be back with another world-class athlete on the podcast next week. Stay tuned to my Twitter to find out who that will be. It will be out next Wednesday as usual. And I look forward to speaking to you again. Take care.
The Best in the World podcast with Richard Parr.